We are back with part 2. I've had a hard time watching this because I don't have that much time, and the time that I do have available for Trimet, I prefer Twitter and Dispatch. So it makes it hard to watch these because these are basically nothing but a bore. But we have a little time today, so let's see how much of this we can get through. We're 38 minutes through an hour and 20. Jesus Christ.
To make our system more efficient. We've reduced the amount of automatic increase annually on our materials and supplies accounts throughout the district. So that brings down the operating costs, and so the fare box recovery metric is improved. Thank you.
So I think my questions are answered on the fare recovery part, but I'm interested in on the enforcement side now, and you mentioned in the opening statements about Portland Patrol Incorporated, and I'm wondering what kind of equity considerations have gone into that and just proactive.
Well, this is interesting because we just had this whole big scene with the woman who was hassled and arrested and humiliated and generally treated like a common criminal. Her name is Annadelle Rocchio, I don't know how you pronounce it. But anyway, this is interesting because let's hear what they have to say about this fare for. He's talking about equity. There's no equity when it comes to the police state, all right? It's documented. People don't believe it. I know there's a whole bunch of people who don't believe it, but they're all wrapped up in the identity politics. Like, oh my God, the blacks are getting better treatment than the whites, or I don't know what they're wrapped up into. Okay, I don't know. I try to remain neutral in terms of people's opinions. Let's hear what he says.
What you're thinking about as far as who feels safe where and when writing the system.
Yeah, I think I think for some that, we have transit police out there. We have a bit of a spectrum of types of people who can enforce fares. And part of this is also the confidence. You don't actually have to have somebody who can write the ticket to actually bring confidence to the system that if I saw somebody, we have contractors out there called G4S, for example. They don't necessarily write tickets, but the fact that they're out there actually brings confidence to.
G4S is one of the most unethical police state functionaries. They're worldwide, and I say it over and over how Trimet is nothing but a government functionary who's enforcing the will of the totalitarian government that we all live in here. And these things prove it because they employ the worst of the worst when it comes to the police state.
The people that they don't know if they can enforce tickets or not. So we believe that, and I've seen this in other agencies, by having that broader presence out in the system, there's a lot higher propensity that people may get their fare checked. This is a proof of payment system, so when asked, you need to produce appropriate and valid fare. So by putting more collective individuals on the system, you'll see that increase. Now, for some, we acknowledge they may feel threatened by a police officer or others. We feel, and we're doing some work in this regard with our, we have...
See, now he'll proceed. We've seen this over and over, how they make excuses for the police state. They don't acknowledge the citizens that are dissent to this. You see this over and over and over. He's not going to say anything against the police state because he is the police state. He is the police state. He's the police state. Okay? These people are paid with your tax dollars to keep you at bay. All right? These are the technocrats. The technocrats are the ones that make everything work. And for an extreme example, I'll give you Germany, 1930s, 40s. People in suits and ties made the trains run on time. Okay? You know what I mean.
We have an advisory committee to the general manager. It's called TIAC, the Transit Equity and Advisory Committee, and we've just expanded that group recently, and we're also forming a safety and security committee as well, and we'll be taking and having discussions just like this around how we manage the equity piece of of part of overall fare enforcement. A significant underpinning of this is actually going to be our low-income fare program, which we're really excited about. So I think that's going to go a long way to helping those in need still have access to the system and still have a mechanism to pay for economic and other reasons.
Yeah, you see, this is a extraction mechanism here, extracting wealth from the citizens. Not enough that the citizens had paid for this operation. The citizens are paying their salaries, $300,000 a year for this piece of shit. I don't know what he's getting. Must be $200,000 for that guy. He's the highest paid general manager in the history of Trimet, a reject from Canada. But he's a technocrat, and that means he will follow the policies of the neoliberal masters and extract as much wealth from the citizens as possible. And the only reason there's a low income fare, let's get that straight, is because they stole, I'm going to say the word, the so-called leaders, the hacks that we call leaders, decided to tax all the Oregonians without their approval, not bringing it to a vote, $5 billion. That's $1,400 per resident was stolen by the state of Oregon. And so they threw a crumb back here. Here's a low-income fare. That's their crumb to the masses, you know. It's pathetic.
So by handling this on several fronts, we actually feel pretty comfortable with these investments. It'll move the surety of our overall system up. I don't know if, John, did you want to comment on that?
No, I think exactly what you said about the Safety Security Advisory Committee, which is going to be populated with community-based organizations, specifically those that serve low-income or culturally specific populations. We want their voice to make sure we're doing things the right way and in a sensitive manner.
They want their voice, my ass.
For everyone.
And by the way, the guy that was in that job before that, this guy, what's his name? John L. Bell. He's in some big political job in Washington. See, they get these people, and they're all part of the club now, the little club. You know, needless to say, I have no faith in any of these people. I think they're hacks. They're liars, hacks, overpaid hacks.
Safety and security and trust and equity, and these are all topics that we've been talking about quite a bit. One of the safety considerations has to do with positive train control. This is the first year I'd ever heard that term, I guess tragically, because there have been problems around the country, not with your system, but with other systems. And I think the public would benefit from an explanation of what positive train control is.
Sure. Let's ask Steve Witter, Executive Director of Engineering, to help respond to that.
Thank you, Doug. As you noted, positive train control really came about after a tragic freight train and commuter rail accident that happened in Los Angeles back in 2006, 2007 time period. So positive train control, to define it, it is the latest generation of equipment, technology, and procedures that can automatically bring a moving train to a rapid halt. PTC's many features include its ability to stop a train if it exceeds the track speeds, if it passes a red signal or gets too close to another train. It's really when you have a shared freight and passenger corridor, it's to keep those trains separated. Trimet and the host railroad, Portland and Western Railroad, are on track to fully implement PTC in the West Corridor by the federally mandated deadline of December 31st, 2018. The next phase that the project is about to enter is called the Revenue Service Demonstration Phase, and that's where we really turn it on.
Oh my God, they're going to turn it on.
With the approval of the Federal Railroad Administration. We are on track to submit that final application to them at the end of this month. We've been working with them since last fall on various versions of that and sort of responding to
See how complicated they overcomplicate everything. Everything is overcomplicated when you're talking government bureaucracy. How much money can they spend? They spend as much money as they can on it because it's all tax money, and they overcomplicate it as much as possible. It's West, for Christ's sake. Does West actually need that? It's nothing. It's not like a real commuter rail.
Comments as they're received. Excuse me. So we're really about to turn it on. I do want to note that when WES was put into place in its inception, we had a sort of we had a similar set of protections that we called cab signals. So it was a computerized system that actually monitored train speeds as it went through various parts of the track, and then would warn the driver that they were about to stop the train. If the driver did not respond, the train would be stopped. This is really an enhanced version of that, and is compatible with the freight railroad as well. The fiscal year 2018 and 29 expenditures will pay for the final testing that comes with the Revenue Service Demonstration Project, as well as completing the safety plan documentation, which is key for us to move forward. I will note, of the approximately $1.95 million in the budget, $1.5 million of that is actually through a FRA grant that we applied for. So we are seeking. We are receiving some assistance from the federal government, and will seek other opportunities as they arise.
So you anticipated my follow-ups, which were about the source of funding, and so thank you. I appreciate that.
Very good. Thank you.
David, so given the national attention that was brought because of a series of incidents, what is your deadline? What is the federal deadline by which you have to comply and be fully operational?
So the federal deadline is actually, excuse me, by the end of this calendar year. It has moved several times, and has moved sort of.
Wait a minute, why? I mean, where's Trump's no regulations? What's going on, Trumpy? Get rid of that regulation. We don't need positive train control. What the fuck is up, man? I thought they were getting rid of regulations. But this is a regulation? Fuck.
That the lobbying of the larger freight railroads. Part of the reason, if there's a supply and demand sort of component to PTC and its cost and its schedule. So every small railroad that runs passenger and freight, every large railroad that has passengers on their lines, are all trying to do this same work at the same time. So it, but compliance, we will comply. We will. Certainly do that with plenty of time before the end of the year.
Thank you.
I might just add, this is a compliment to Steve and our operating team.
Here comes a mutual masturbation session. You get this in every meeting where they all pat each other on the back for a job well done.
Trimet's being used as an example in Washington by the FDA. I've had 2 requests recently for us to participate as a role model for many other transit agencies who are going through this very complex conversion.
What's he talking about? The East Coast transit agencies have plenty of goddamn experience with this. So what the hell is he talking about?
And so through the FTA and also APTA, our transit agency, Steve and team and Patrick Pricer's team have been literally, we send them down to Washington to help others through.
Great. So here, they send Trimet people to Washington to help. That means your tax dollars that you pay from the Portland area goes to these people to go to other places and help them do what? They've already implemented this in many places. This is not the first time it's been implemented. Where's he coming up with this nonsense?
The implementation and the steps we've taken to actually get this in place. So we're ahead of the curve here.
See how they overcomplicate everything. This is the problem with bureaucracy that's tax funded. There's no bottom to the barrel.
Many other transit agencies in the United States are struggling to hit that deadline. So we will be in place ahead of time.
That's great to hear.
So this is small potatoes on the overall size of the Trimet budget, but I guess part of why I was interested in what the deadline was and the timeline is because I saw in the budget it said the total cost of implementing positive train control is like $4.2 million.
Whoa!
And I think,
did you hear that? 4.2. That's more than the cost of the goddamn trains, isn't it? Oh, Jesus Christ! I can't believe this shit goes on like this.
that 2.6 million was budgeted in this year and 1.7 million was budgeted in next year, which made it sound to me like we were doing this over a decade or 8 years or something. And so where's the rest of that 14.2 million being spent? And if you don't know the answer, obviously 14.2 million, especially if a lot of it...
14.2 million for this. This here it is again. Your pork barrel, all right? This is ridiculous. That's just ridiculous.
It's coming from the federal government is small. We don't need to spend a lot of time on it.
I'd have to go do some follow-up. We really should complete in this year. So
okay. Maybe if somebody could just send an email to Craig explaining that afterwards. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, next question is about the Southwest Corridor.
Oh.
So could you please tell us the status of
Now here's a goddamn boondoggle that they're going to want you to pay for. Another fucking light rail line. The light rail lines work like shit every day. There's 2 to 4 to 5 interruptions. But these motherfuckers are going to shove this down our throat, and they're going to try to get you to pay for it. And hopefully there's enough enlightened voters to realize this is a scam.
the corridor plan, and what are the critical factors required to continue planning for this expansion?
Great. Thank you. The Southwest Corridor Plan includes a new 12-mile max line from downtown Portland to Tigard and eventually on to Bridgeport Village in Tualatin. It also is complemented by a strategy that's in place and managed by Metro, our metropolitan planning organization, to ensure that development that follows along with the expansion of light rail.
See now, okay, this is the thing. It's not about transportation. It's about property development. It's you see it over and over and over and over. It's not about you transit riders, right? This is called neoliberalism. They're using your tax funds to foster development. This is neoliberalism. It's right here in front of you. I don't know why people can't see it. They're either just watching sports or Oprah or whoever the hell they watch. They're not following any of this stuff.
Happens in an equitable way, and that we're able to address some of the...
Yeah, they sure like to use the term equity, don't they? They just love to use it.
Development pressures that come along with increased transit. Metro is currently the project lead for the compliance with National Environmental Protection Act, as well as administers of the FTA grant for equitable development that I just mentioned. Trimet is providing project design and engineering for the light rail component of this larger Southwest Corridor plan. The light rail project has completed its draft I should take a moment. We're in the process of completing our draft environmental impact statement. We recently heard from FTA up in Region 10 that they're going to take a little bit longer with issuing that document. So I noted that sort of mid-month we would be seeing that published maybe closer to the end of the month. So that's a little bit dynamic, but all comments that we've heard from our FTA partners have been positive about the document. They're just a little hesitant given it's their first environmental impact statement that they're signing with this new administration in Washington, D.C. So they want to cross all the T's, dot all the I's. Critical factors required to continue the project are the selection of a locally preferred alternative in June of 2018. Again, that time may vary a little bit. And the locally preferred alternative will ultimately be adopted by Metro Council, the Trimet Board, and other jurisdictional bodies, City of Tigard, City of Portland, City of Tualatin, etc. We will submit an application to enter the project development phase to the Federal Transit Administration in January of 19. That's when the project really starts to move through the federal funding pipeline. You might ask, why are we not in project development right now? Project development is a 2-year-long window, and so timing when we start, along with when we want to exit that process is key. Let me see. And that will happen with publication of the final environmental impact statement in July of 2019. That's followed with a record of decision, which is the federal government's sort of final sign-off on the impacts of the project. A public vote to approve local funding support for the project is scheduled for the general election in November of 2020.
Yes.
And then Trimet would seek to receive its full funding grant agreement at the end of 22. And project.
See, they're bringing this to a vote. They want you to pay for it. Now, hopefully I know Portland is very educated about transit. And I know that because I peruse all the other districts. And Portland's very advanced, and hopefully they'll say no to this. No, fuck you. I wouldn't give them a penny. I mean, I wouldn't give the government a penny, period, anyway. But I sure as hell wouldn't pay this. But you know how the voters are. They're easy to fool. If you can get people to vote for the likes of Trump and Clinton, you can get them to vote for anything.
Project is currently planned to go into service in fall of 2027. So
2020. Yeah.
If you have any other questions.
See how they have this all planned out for you, citizens? They haven't told you. They have it all planned out for you here, buddy boys. Just give us your money and we know what we're going to do. See? Give us your money, please. Hand it right over here. It's all for you.
That's good. I think that's good. Thank you.
Can I follow up?
Sure. I'm taking off my TSCC hat for just a moment and putting on my public persona hat.
Okay.
My experience with the interstate corridor, when it went through that process and evolved and became this incredible addition to that community, in my community, but there was also gentrification that followed it.
No kidding.
And so I would anticipate that there will be some similar issues with the corridor.
No kidding.
As it evolves.
And they're going to have a whole bunch of lip service about equity, and it ain't going to change nothing. And everybody that doesn't have money is going to get pushed out because it's America. Okay? Land of the free. And you're free to be pushed out of your house if you don't have money.
What is Trimet's role in addressing, you talk about equitable development in your comments, does Trimet have a role in addressing some of these issues that come with increased access and increased improvements in the corridor?
Sure. Trimet absolutely plays a role in that. And while our primary mission is to provide high-quality transit service, we also are partners in the development community, and specifically we target our activities with nonprofits and affordable housing providers. And let me explain how we do that. When we build these projects, oftentimes we impact properties, and sometimes the impacts are small and sometimes they are large. And when they are large, oftentimes we end up sort of acquiring the whole property at that point. We seek to then put that property back out on the market, and that also might be staging sites, it might be part of the alignment. So various reasons would cause us to require acquisition of the property. What we have done in the past and what we will agree to do in a multi-jurisdictional memorandum of understanding is when we dispose of our...
Multi-jurisdictional, remember, oh my God, Jesus Christ.
Property, there are two components to the disposal of that property. There's the local share of the funding that went to purchase that property, and then the federal share of the funding that went to purchase that property. Our last few projects have been 50-50 split, 50% local, 50% federal. What we've been able to do when we release these properties is get federal concurrence that we can not charge them for the federal share of the property. So therefore we're able to put the property out to again to these community development corporations,
they're able to give the property to a developer for cheap.